Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And I'm excited today because we have none other than Rosie Acosta, who is here. We've had lots of cool chats before, but you actually got here to the Bio home, which is awesome. And for those who don't know who Rosie is, let me read a little bit of her biography, which doesn't really do her justice, but it will give you a little bit of idea. First off, she grew up in East LA in a gang-riddled neighborhood. She transformed her life as the founder of Radically Loved Yoga, Health, and Wellness and host of the podcast Radically Loved. It's a great podcast. Please check it out. As a yoga and meditation teacher and holistic health coach, she works with a wide range of students, from those in her East Los Angeles community to Olympic athletes, NFL champions, NBA All-Stars, and veterans from Afghanistan. We were just talking about Kobe Bryant, a former client, about the tragedy of all that. And then Rosie's mission is to help others overcome adversity and experience radical love. She's been featured in Yoga Journal. You know that one where they always have the beautiful meditating girl in the front? And Well Plus Good. I don't know that one. Forbes and New York Post. Rosie, let's get the computer away. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so let's, first off, the word radically loved. What does radically loved mean to you?
Oh, wow. What does radically loved mean to me? Well, it's so much a basis of why I do what I do and how I actually was able to transform my life from growing up in a really chaotic environment and to get to the place where I am now, because there is this belief that we are radically loved, radically supported by God, source, whatever higher power of your understanding, that the universe works for us and not against us. And so the whole idea behind radical, well, not only does radical, the root word, mean root, but I just love the idea of going into this place and just feeling radically supported and radically accepted and just radically loved. For me, it was the catalyst to creating a different life, to see the world differently. And so I wanted to create I don't know that I necessarily started off as wanting to create a business, but right. It was more of an idea to create a community or create just a place for people to feel accepted and to feel that they can be who they are without feeling judged or not accepted. It's a long explanation.
Well, that's okay. It's radically loved, I'm sure, encompasses a lot of things. Talk to me a little bit about what was it like growing up in a gang-riddled kind of area, East LA, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of like, take us back to that time. And what was it like as you were growing up as a child and stuff? You were in this thing, and this kind of shootings and gang members and all that sort of stuff. Like, what was that all like?
Yeah, I mean, it was awful. Mm-hmm. It sucked.
When you say that, like, what was a day like? Like, how would you navigate the world in that kind of environment?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's such a great way to frame the scene, because when you grow up in an environment like that and you're there from when you were a baby, essentially, you don't really know that there's anything different. You kind of grow up in this environment where it's normal to live in fight or flight. You're just used to it. It's normal to not be able to sleep at night. It's normal to have fear walking outside of your door. It's normal to see a drive-by shooting. It's normal to see people physically fighting. It's normal to see domestic abuse. It's the chaos is so normalized in those types of scenarios, especially it was during the 90s, early 90s, and there was a lot of things going on in LA at that point. There was a lot of police brutality. There was a lot of violence going around at that time.
It was around they had the Rodney King
exactly.
riots back then.
I think one of the most poignant scenes in my life that I remember so vividly, that really encompasses a metaphor of that time in my life as a young child, was seeing the smoke, the thickness of the smoke and the ash come down from all of the burning businesses during that time after the riots, and being able to driving to see relatives of ours that lived in that Normandy and Western area, and just seeing things that were still on fire and not seeing any fire trucks or anything. It was really like, to me, it was very reminiscent of movies that I would see. It was just a scene out of a movie, and it was scary. It was really, really scary to have those experiences at such a young age, because in my mind, I'm also a recovering Catholic. So I grew up in a very Catholic household where we would go to church on Sundays, and my grandmother would host these prayer circles once a week. And there was this big cognitive dissonance, because here I am learning about faith and about ritual and about how this higher power, this God, will create a life of abundance and like peace in your life. And then on the opposite side of that, I'm seeing all of this chaos. So it was a very interesting observation to make at 6-7 years old, to see a group of women praying and asking God why this is happening and not getting an answer back. So it created this interesting understanding of a paradox at such a young age. And I think when you ask the question of what it was like, I mean, looking back now, it felt very like educational. I was learning so much in my little tiny 6-year-old body experience of the world, and being able to see things as they were, and then have people say, oh, you just have to pray the fear away, or you have to pray the gang violence away, or you have to pray the anxiety or stress away. And it didn't work, so at a young age, I was questioning so many things. I was questioning so much of my surroundings. And that's also something that is a little bit sacrilegious to do, because at that point, it's not that you're questioning a system, you're questioning your faith, right? You're questioning, how are you questioning God? Or how are you questioning the belief or the efficacy of prayer or of belief? And so it just created a ground for me to later on as a teenager start to act out,
So taking yourself into your teenage years, obviously you're seeing what seems to be the paradox becomes almost unbearable, because you're like, wait a second. And I had a similar thing when I was a teenager, right? It's like I grew up in a Baptist church in a little small town, and it was kind of Jesus loves the little children of the world, and he's this great guy, and he's infinite love. And then you get old enough and you go to the big church, and they're like, and if you don't worship this guy forever, you're going to burn in a lake of fire forever. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to the Jesus love me guy? Right? Like what happened here? Like, somebody's not telling me the truth.
Right.
I'm not getting the full picture here. And it wasn't resolved until many, many years later when I discovered Yogananda and those principles. And I was like, oh, he resolved all my issues with organized religion. So that was cool. But going back to that paradox point that you're having, at what point did you... There's a shift here that happens. And teenage is quite common.
Yeah.
That we start to rebel about the things that don't make sense.
Yes.
We're old enough to see the things that don't make sense, but we're not old enough to really be a mature adult and understand responsibility in the world, right? Right. Or what we can control and what we can't. We're just saying, hey, why can't everybody love each other and we can all be rich and famous?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, because that's sort of especially growing up in LA, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's what you do, right? So, during that transition, my parents had split up, and so my mom was raising my older sister and I was acting out. I was suffering from PTSD from seeing people get shot and somebody get stabbed, and just being in this intense experience. I was suffering from debilitating panic attacks and insomnia, and I was on the McDonald's everyday diet. So there was all kinds of, it was a recipe for disaster, right? I just wasn't feeling my best. And yeah, I started to get in trouble with the law. You know, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, kids that you grew up with. There's really only, you're either part of the crews that have created people that you've grown up with, or you basically become like a book nerd. You know, you're just basically focused on school and you're kind of part of that crew, or you're a bad kid. Like there was only two options during that time, especially in the school that I was going to.
And so you decided that you'd be a bad kid.
Yeah, because
whatever. Now, how would you define a bad kid?
So you're 13, 14 years old, ditching school and, you know, smoking pot and drinking and not just going to 7-Eleven and stealing things and, you know, just you're being tagging walls and just being, you know, bad, not a good child. So
it's kind of a form, though, of natural rebellion to that, which somehow you kind of know what's going on isn't right.
Right.
And so there's that anger that comes up as a motivation. It's like, well, you know, screw all these people, right? Yeah.
It felt so, it's also the tribalism thing, right? I didn't want to be spurned from my tribe. These were kids that I'd grown up with. So it just felt like a natural thing to start to fall into those types of patterns. So I ended up getting in trouble with the law a handful of times. And the last time it was for trying to steal a cop car. And
it's usually an idea that doesn't work out well.
Yeah, no, it didn't. And I got arrested and I got, it was pretty eye-opening for me actually at that point, because I realized, wow, this is real. This isn't a game. This is my life. And just seeing where my life was headed, I remember going to the court that day, and my mom dressed me up in all of her, you know, her nice clothes. I was wearing this turtleneck, and I was just, you know, trying to look the part as a good kid. And then everywhere around, I just see, you know, people, gangbangers dressed in like their baggy jeans and like t-shirt and, you know, shaved heads and tatted up. And here I come in front of this judge, and he's kind of looking at me like, what
are you doing?
What are you doing here? Like,
how old were you at this time?
I was 15.
Wow. Very, that's a big turning. 15.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's.
You're right on the fence of what direction you're going, right?
Yeah. And so that was that pivotal moment. I really didn't want to go to jail, and I gave myself the out to say, hey, like, thankfully I didn't get any jail time, but I did get like 100 hours of community service, and my mom had to pay a couple $1,000s in damage that was done, restitution or something. And there was a couple other things that I had to do. I had a curfew. I couldn't leave the state. I couldn't be out past 6 o'clock. And it was just sort of like my teenage life was over. And I just decided that was it. I needed that catalyst to get my life together. And I thought in that moment while I was in court thinking, I can easily see my life going in that direction. There was a part of me that didn't care. That rebellious part of you that's just like, yeah, like, I don't care. Like, go ahead. Fine. And I see that a lot now at my age and doing what I do, working with kids that are at-risk youth and have been through traumatic experiences, seeing that energy of like, I don't care and nothing matters and I don't matter, right? And it really was an embodiment of I didn't think I mattered, and I didn't think that my life mattered, and I didn't understand what the point of life was. And as the universe likes to do, it likes to present you with opportunities to make different choices. And that's around the time when I got introduced to the Self-Realization Fellowship.
Wow.
And my mom actually worked by the center off Sunset Boulevard. She was working at the Children's Hospital at the time, and I was still really struggling with anxiety. And one of her friends had said, oh, she should try meditation as a way to quell the anxiety, and it might help her with her sleep. And my mom and I didn't really have great communication at that time, so she kind of left all of the Yogananda pamphlets that her friend had given you at home. So she kind of left them on the bed, and I came home and I saw, I'm like, what is this? And I started to read through the power of the power of attraction and self-realization and all of these different like cool things, because Yogananda always has the best.
Yeah, he's got the best.
The best stuff,
Yeah.
Especially for a teenager. I was like, what is this? This is interesting. And I read through some of the things, and there was a schedule with a little pamphlet on it that gave the address. And so at the time I was still kind of ditching school because I felt like I needed time to think about my life. So I was still ditching school. So the next day I ditched school and I took the bus from East LA to Hollywood to go see what this self-realization.
So you went to the Hollywood
fellowship.
Temple.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So back in those, I guess it would be Brother Bhaktananda or Bimlananda were at the church. Two
I don't
little
remember.
monks that were running.
Oh yeah, there was definitely. I mean, it was very. I remember exactly all the people that I saw the minute that I walked in, because everybody was smiling, everybody was like so nice, and I just thought it was so weird. I was like, this is weird. Like, why are people smiling? I don't understand. And then I went into that main temple right before they were giving a lecture, and I go in, the woman she's like greeting, and it's very nice, and I go and I sit down, and it reminded me of being in the Catholic Church. It was, because inside it's got the pews, and you're
stuff,
sitting, and then there's all the pictures of all the teachers and the swamis, and then there's a picture of Jesus, right? And then I'm like, oh, I know him. Jesus.
You're right.
Yeah, he's familiar. I get him. And so I sit there, and then this woman comes up and she's giving this lecture, and she's talking about this meditation, and she's talking about happiness and how we're responsible for our own happiness, and all of these things that just sounded so interesting to me. It was very intriguing, and I'm sitting there waiting for like the guy or whomever to come, and I didn't know what it was. I'm like, is this a lecture? Am I meditating? I don't understand what's going on. But then I realized like 30 minutes in, I'm like, oh no, she's the guy. She's the guy. She's the guy. She's the person that's talking about, this is the thing, And I remember that something happened. There was something that happened during that experience. She had us close our eyes, and I was not a fan of that because I grew up.
That was dangerous.
Yeah, it was dangerous. You have to constantly be alert. And so I didn't, but I did just kind of bring my eyes down a little bit, and she was kind of guiding a breathing practice, and then she just said, okay, calm, relax your shoulders, and then take a deep breath. And that moment where she invited us to take a deep breath was the first time I'd ever actually felt my body. Like, what my body, like, I felt my body, and it was so wild, because for me, that's all it took to say, oh, there's something else out here. Like, there's something else present.
What a powerful experience.
Oh, yeah. So to me, when people talk about having a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience, I go straight to that moment. So it doesn't have to be something spectacular or some great vision. It could be as spontaneous as taking a deep breath and feeling your body, because that's what it was for me. And if you think about trauma, or if you think about people that have experienced intense experiences, and I'm sure this is maybe something that you can relate to, we're so focused on getting out of body because that's what can allow for the survival of an intense experience. It's like, oh, I just have to take myself out of this scenario.
Which happens a lot in traumatic situations, like whether it's being held hostage or a prisoner, or your life being threatened, or rape, or extreme violence. There is a defense mechanism that a person kind of checks out from whatever is going, and it becomes almost a hypnotic state that one goes. But the trauma is there, but your psyche kind of fractionates in a way to protect you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so if you think about then getting back into your body and getting grounded, or getting more centered, so to speak, you have to re-enter your body. You have to re-enter that space. You have to create the sanctuary within yourself and feel safe within that. And for me, that was where yoga and meditation really came in to save the day, because those were the practices that were able to get me back into feeling my body and returning to finding meaning and finding purpose and like wanting to actually create something.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people, you said something really, I think, very important, is that taking that first breath. I mean, we think of, spirituality and all the magical things that can potentially emerge out of that. But what could be more magical than our breath? I mean, the fact that we're living and, breath is the cord that ties the soul to the physicality. And it's one of those things that happens automatically, but you can also do consciously, which is really a unique aspect of breathing and the different types of breathing. So after that, you go from the police station to the meditation center.
The meditation station.
Exactly. The meditation. So then what emerged after that? What happened in your life? Because obviously, one little session isn't going to break you out of the environment that you're in. You still have to overcome the negative momentum, the momentum that's taking you downward, the environment that you're in. You get this little moment, but you gotta work your way out of this. So what happens after that?
So there's a desire born from that, where I want to learn why I feel the way I feel, and I dove deep into the world of meditation and learning more yoga philosophy, exploring Buddhism, just all the different paths, right? And I became a student. And it took a handful of years. I mean, it took a while for me to finally get to a place where I really began to integrate what I was learning. So much of what I was doing at the time was just for myself. It felt good to learn about different paths and different ways of living life. I needed tools for living, because I had spent so much time being out of my body that I needed to reintegrate myself into a world of, okay, now what do I do? Like, what am I going to do with myself? And it's funny, because I really do believe in the power of intention, and I do believe in the power of belief and the right people coming in at the right time. And it just, the moment that I started to bring my awareness to feeling good and focusing on my body and my health, everything else started to fall into place. I was getting different opportunities, different job opportunities. I ended up getting a job working as a hair salon manager for this really famous celebrity hairstylist.
How old were you then?
I was 19.
Wow.
And an ex-criminal.
Right.
And I was being asked to run $1 million business, and he didn't need to know my colorful past at that time. When I had that offer, I was working at another salon actually that he had recruited me from, because he had heard that I was doing a really great job. And so that's really all it took, is that one opportunity, that one person believing in you and giving you that sort of positive feedback that you're doing something well. Mm-hmm. And I did. And at the time I was still learning even more. I got more into learning about nutrition and health. And as I said prior, I was on the McDonald's diet. So I obviously changed to that. And I started learning about organic foods, and I had read the China study, and I was really going deep into the world of wellness. I'd made a new set of friends, and little by little, just my world started to expand, and I started to just see the difference in putting your energy into things that were making you better. I felt better. I was attracting people in my life that were also doing the same type of work, that wanted to be better as well. And so that started to just grow and grow. And over the course of a few years, still working at the salon, I met my partner, who I'm with now. We've been together for 18 years, so we met when I was 20.
Wow.
And that really helped shape my life, because it showed me, oh, okay, so if you have a desire to do better and to be better, the universe will respond to that so long as you're doing the work, right? So long as you continue to show up and you continue to move through whatever obstacles are coming up. During that time, I did my first yoga teacher training, not because I wanted to be a teacher, but because I wanted to deepen my practice. I wanted to kind of explore why I felt the way that I did. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know what the reason was. And what's interesting is people see me now, or students now, and I do these retreats, we're just talking about it. People see me as somebody who's very spiritual, which I find really fascinating, because I have a spiritual practice, but I have it because I'm too logical of a person, because I'm very black and white, because I need to know I need the facts. I need to know why I'm feeling this way. I want to understand it, because if you think about it from that fragmented thinking from when I was a child, blind faith for me wasn't an option, because I didn't see it bear fruit for anybody.
Right. You saw what blind faith was getting people nowhere.
Exactly. And so that was always it created a little bit of sort of defense mechanism. I didn't want to fully dive into something, even though it felt good and doing what I was doing felt really good. I still felt like there's that part of my brain that doubts, right? Which has been the culprit of many of my failures, because of that doubt, right? Where I need to be able to toe the line between having belief, radical love, and also being that sort of left brain, what is the logic in this? And I feel that for me, that's my spiritual practice, is to be able to get in that state of merging the two, because I mean, that's what yoga is. It's the study of opposites. And when I think about it now, I'm so grateful that I had the experience that I did, because I was able to learn about paradoxes early on. So then when we're dealing with things like impermanence, we're dealing with things like change, we're dealing with things that are out of our control, I'm able to manage those situations in a more efficient or fluid way, because I know that we have no control. Right?
So after working in the salon and doing your teacher training and all this stuff, so how did you make the transition to the person that you are today? That seems like it's a long way.
I also like to show people that it's many years. There's many years between all of these things that happen, because that's just the way that life is. I see now some people that they want to become a yoga teacher, they want to become a podcaster, they want to do everything, they want to do it quick.
Correct.
Right? And it's the
downside of what I call the Amazon expectation.
Yes.
It's it's not here in 24 hours. What's the problem?
Yeah.
And then the self comparison starts to happen. Oh well, so and so, because there's always some YouTuber that's got 1 million followers at 17, driving Rolls Royces and hanging out with celebrities and stuff. And if I'm not that, then maybe I'm not good enough, or I haven't been recognized, or I'm better than that. We have all those defense mechanisms. So.
Well, and you get this because I have so much respect and admiration for athletes and people that work with their bodies, right? So you have the history of, bodybuilding and working physically. And to me, that is the best metaphor for any path that you take, because it takes time. In order to build muscle, you have to tear the muscle down in order for it to build back up. And it takes time. It doesn't happen. You don't go from one day to the next to be in a competition.
Well, I think that's kind of one of if you go to Patanjali's Eightfold Path, and most people think of yoga primarily as a sauna.
Right.
The postures. First you start with yama and niyama, the moral of the do's and don'ts, the moral of nothing. You just don't want to be, otherwise you become like a powerful Darth Vader as opposed to an Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? But I think when you get to asana, which is essentially body discipline, the process of discipline your body creates, it's a mental game that you have to play with. You have to get physical discipline, and then that mental construct can then eventually lead to spiritual realization. Right. And I think it's that chop wood, carry water, do the practice. I don't feel like doing the practice, do the practice, until it becomes embedded into that. And I think physical discipline, whether it's yoga, athletics, performance, could be anything that leads you to that, will start to open up awareness of mental discipline, and then you move up through the ranks, which is, concentration, and then
meditation.
You got to go through that. So body disciplines. And when I went to India and learned about the history of bodybuilding in India, which goes way, way, way back. A lot of people don't know this. It was one of the forms of discipline, one of the yoga disciplines. And so there are different pathways for different people. Yeah. And I think a lot of people miss that step. And a lot of athletes will kind of master the physical side of it, but you see this in the pro ranks all the time. If they don't get the mental side of the game, they've got, as they say, they got all the tools but no toolbox.
Right.
And of course, then you can have both. Maybe you've got the physical characteristics and the mental characteristics, but you end up in this the resentment of success, and you see people self-destruct at that level because having all the money in the world and all the adulation in the world and all the athletic stuff, it's all cool, but it's not what makes you a human, and it's certainly cool and fun, but that doesn't feed the soul.
Right.
And you either get that, you take that and go to the next level and become a kind of a magnanimous, self-expressed person, or it tends to erode into some sort of narcissistic, self-destructive nature. You see that happen, and I think a lot of people don't understand the intense focus of what success could lead to. It'll test you as much as anything. So
100%. And just to go back on what you're saying, because it does relate to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is one of my favorite yogic texts, because it doesn't just say the Eightfold Path. It gives you many ways, right? The whole book is about, if this doesn't work, try this.
Yes.
If this doesn't work, tapas vidyaya ishvara pranidhani. So if that doesn't work, the fire that you need of transformation, the study of sacred texts, or surrender to God. Like, those are the different ways of getting into this expansive place. What you're saying, though, I really love, because I feel like people don't talk about it enough, and it's such a great example of social media. Whatever the energy that you cultivate is only going to expand what's already there. So the difference between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, right? If you're not working with the inside of you at your core, the things that are creating imbalance, or the things that are creating despair or anger, or the things that like to stew, when you begin to do all these practices, it's just going to magnify whatever's there. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea behind yoga is that we need this sort of the yama, the niyama, in order to live a good life, to be a good person, to be compassionate, to have these different like foundations, create a solid life. Because you begin a ritual, you begin to sort of do away with the things that are afflicting you, then you can begin to express and expand all the goodness that you want to bring into the world. You start to just innately, it's not like, oh, I want to be a good person, I want to be a good person. Don't tell yourself you want to be a good person, just be a good person. Right? Don't just say, oh, I want...
Yeah, you create a separation
exactly.
there, right?
Yeah, so it's the whole oneness experience. It's like, I am what I am, and I am here, and I can create this experience now. So whether I have the millions of dollars in the Rolls Royces or whatever or not, that person is if they don't work on the internal, they're never going to be happy. They're never going to find the satisfaction. They're going to go from one thing to the next, just like you were saying, the Amazon thing. Just to go back to answer your question about how, because it relates to what I'm saying, during that transition when I decided, okay, this is what I want to do for a living, I was working at the salon had closed during the recession. And
so 07, 08?
Yeah, about 08. And then I had this opportunity to go work for a personal trainer, and it was awesome. And I was just learning so much about the business and about wellness and about the impact that you can have on people's lives. And after a couple of years, I just was not happy. I just felt like I wanted to do something. I wanted to be able to expand what I was learning, and I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to be able to be the one that was leading retreats and workshops. And it wasn't necessarily coming from a place of, oh, I just really want, I mean, yes, I wanted to help people like the people I grew up with understand that they're powerful, that they have so much power they don't even know. But at that moment, I think I had so much to learn, because it definitely felt like I just was done. You know that moment where you're just throwing it almost felt like an internal tantrum, where like, I know all these things, I have all this information, I need to go teach this.
Right.
And I'm so glad that it didn't work like that. I'm so glad that I fell on my face, that it wasn't as quickly as I thought it would be, that it took many years for me to actually build a community, for me to actually show up. And it actually took me starting with 1 student, 2 students, 3 students, 4 students, 10 students, 20 students. Now I'm moving to a different city, and now it's back to 1 student, back to 2 students. And that experience of having things not work out, and I'm sure you can speak to this as a business owner, 100%. It's like those are the moments where you just grow the most, where you really learn what it is that you actually want to do and what you want to create.
I think the worst thing that can happen to somebody is outrageous success early on in their life.
Yeah.
And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think they oftentimes, and I've interviewed a few people like that, number one, there's a sense of unearned components on one level, or everything is this easy. And then 3, the resources you have, the crash. If you're it's a bigger crash if you're falling on your face from the first floor or from the penthouse. You know, the fall from the one from the first floor is survivable. The penthouse often isn't, and you see that particularly at what I've noticed in you know, the classic 28 years old rock star, famous person death at that age, which in the Pythagorean model, you have the 0 to 27 is your youth stage, the power stage is 27 to 54, and the wisdom stage is 54 to 81. And if you get past that, you get another youth stage. And concordant to that in the Indian tradition is that you spend the first third of your life under the tutelage of the guru and developing whatever skill it is in the world. And you take the second part to live what they call householder life, where you are supporting your family, creating your craft or your field. And then once the family's kind of moved on from that, you move into the third stage of life, which is where you become the hermit again. You go back into your spiritual study that you laid down early on in life. And I think in the Western world, everybody wants to get to the power stage. And, you know, if you don't manage to get wisdom with that, you know, it's like having a really powerful car with no steering wheel. Sooner or later, it's going to crash into something, and you might not survive it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so wild. I was just having this conversation with one of my friends, and he was saying, you know, people our age, and we have similar backgrounds, we didn't Google it, we earned it, right? So it's the stark difference between getting information, having a quick download and thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I have the knowledge. There's something about having to wait that creates a more integrative experience.
I call it's kind of the emergence of the sacred.
Yes.
That which is sacred is not something that happens quickly. is the cultivation well, sacred to me means there needs to be spaciousness. So that which emerges out of the emptiness can then be recognized, which is actually a principle in quantum mechanics, which is the fundamental aspects of the universe. Like, things are blinking in and out of existence. I mean, we're hurtling through space right now, like 1.5 million miles an hour, and then the galaxy spinning at 500,000 miles an hour. And like, we're not going like this, we're actually corkscrewing through space. And like, think about that, like, the Earth is spinning at 24,000 miles an hour, like, you know, and then I get in my car and I'm doing 70 miles an hour down the highway, and I feel like I'm going fast at 70, but the whole thing is moving at this outrageous space, and you know, we don't know if we're gonna slam into something. Like, there's so much miraculousness, but without the space to hold that, to contemplate that, if it's just I want, I get, I move on, we are able to take it. And I think that's potentially, there's an opportunity in the digital age to discovering that, but it's not readily apparent because there's only so many Amazon orders that you can put forward to kind of fulfill that. Like, you get bored.
Yeah, and our neuroprocessing is not able to process everything that's coming in. We're just not built that way. We're not as quick as a computer. We need time to integrate, and we're so used to that. We're such an ocular society. We're constantly taking information in and scrolling and having ad blindness because we're looking at something. We're not giving our brain. That's why people have so much anxiety and so much stress, because we're just putting things in constantly. And I'm driving while I'm changing the music, while I'm trying to send a text, while I'm talking on the phone, and I'm thinking about where I'm going to go after this next meeting. It's just, there's this constant of wanting to hit the fast forward button. Like, let's hurry up and get there. And I think that the biggest gift in having a practice or being able to cultivate more presence is the whole idea that we really just don't know. We have no idea and we have no control. Right?
So let's talk about when things did start to turn for you. And, you know, like every great success, you know, in athletics, I always share with people, if you're going to be great in athletics, you really have to learn how to lose and to take the lessons of the temporary loss in the short term to get more out of your capabilities. And I have my pseudo nephew, one of my dear friends, she's a little boy and I'm Uncle Wade to him, and he's really good. He's like 6 and he's out playing on his BMX bike and he's really good. And so he got started and he's got a coach and he's just winning like crazy, and then he moves up to the next rankings, which is, kid's a little bit bigger, a little bit older, and he gets beat. And then he gets beat again the second time, and the second time he stopped in the middle of the race when he realized he couldn't win. And then he came back the next time again, and you know, she talked to me about it, and I was like, yeah, he's in a very delicate moment right now, and that is he going to be able to take the lessons of losing and not seeing that he's a loser, or is he going to take that desire to win, to become better, to be beaten? The best thing that can happen to you is to fail. The best thing that can happen to you is to be beaten. Because now you have the opportunity to go, oh, I'm not all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
I gotta dig deeper. I gotta coach harder. I gotta learn more. I gotta train harder. I gotta do whatever it is I need to do to become recognizable as a skill. And the top of any field is a very small segment of people, and in of itself is of no reward. I think that's a lot of people like. Being wealthy and famous, or you know, have your successful business or your practice or your millions of followers or something. Yeah. It's cool, and it's cool for about 60 minutes tops. And the more it happens, it goes like, oh, we just made another few $100,000. Cool. Yeah. Oh, we just got $100,000 more. the end, it becomes like, I think when you don't have it, you think you make it out to be more than it is.
Yeah.
But that being said, it is nice signposts along the way that, hey, I'm tracking in the right direction. So when did that happen for you? Like, what did you start
everything
to
that
see
you
happen?
just said is so true, and I love everything that you just said, because it's one of the most poignant lessons that I feel like everybody needs to experience and needs to learn, especially because the makeup of the mind, the nature of the mind, is to always want what's better. Oh, it would be better if, oh yeah, I got that $100,000. What would be even better is if I was able to get to 150. Oh, it would be even better is if I got to 1 million.
Right.
It would be even better is when I get to 5 million. You know, like
So totally.
that, and it's always going to be that way forever, because that's the nature of the mind.
And there's always, as I said, like, you go into, you drive your yacht into Monte Carlo, your 150-foot yacht, and you go, wow, I got the biggest yacht. And then, no, here comes, you know, the Prince of Poopa, and his boat's twice as big as yours.
Or 3 times.
You know, and you're like, you know, you can't win in that, you can't win in that game.
No, and the thing is, you can, but to what avail and at what cost?
Yes.
So for me, I think things started to turn when I just completely immersed myself in what I was doing, and I wasn't worried about the results. I wasn't worried about getting followers. I wasn't worried about getting recognition. I wasn't worried about getting, you know, the celebs or whatever. It just, honestly, it just started to happen. I was just so focused on doing something that I was passionate about. And it really is, you know, when people say, oh, I would just immerse myself into my practice and into my craft, I do believe that there's something that happens, the universe responds to that. And it's only ever in my life when I've experienced successes has been when I immersed myself in what I was doing wholeheartedly. Not, oh, so I got this person. Oh, I wonder if I could work with this person now. Or I wonder if, like, yeah, if I can fly and work with this team now. Yeah. And because it does happen. I would be lying if I didn't say, like, that it didn't. It absolutely does. But in those moments, for me, it's like you said, the moment you get those accolades, or you get the, you know, I loved working with Yoga Journal, and it's like, it was a dream to be on the cover of their magazine. And then once I did, it was great. But then what? So I did it. What's next? Somebody else is going to be on the next cover. Somebody else is going to be #1. When I launched the podcast, I was top 10 for like 8 months. And then the minute I wasn't on the top 10, I got to the #1 spot, then somebody else is going to be on the #1 spot.
Right.
That sort of thing that happens where you get to that end or that goal, there's always going to be another. You know, I work with athletes that have been in the Olympics. And it's interesting to work with them because they're just a different type of makeup. They're just a different type of person, you know?
Talk about that. What have you noticed?
So I'm very fortunate to work with some really incredibly talented, skilled, committed people. But every single one that I've worked with, athlete specifically, they really love what they do.
Yeah.
Like, they love it. Not just, oh, I have to go to practice, right? They're just like, I get to go. I'm excited. I got practice in the morning. Like, I'm trying to do my yoga before then because I got to do my meditation practice, and I got to get good sleep, and I've got to do this. And it's inspiring because I know that they're not all that way.
Right.
You know?
The best are.
The best are.
I can remember James Harrison, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mm-hmm. And he, at the last season, he goes to one of his arch rivals, the New England Patriots. And he's a legend in his thing. And of course, Tom Brady's a legend.
Right.
And being a guy that, you know, is trying to rip the quarterback apart in his defensive position, he goes, yeah, I went to New England and I wanted to hate the guy. Like, I just, like, I didn't believe it. He goes, and then I went there and I'm like, this guy's so nice. And he's like, it's freezing cold and snowing out. And he's, you know, and we've got to practice. And he's like we get to practice in the cold. You know what? The other guys aren't doing this. We're going to be so ready when we get there. Like, he's jazzed up about the hardest. And then I heard Jocko Willink, one of his favorite videos is Good. I don't know if you've ever seen it. He's the Navy SEAL.
Wow, no.
And the motto of the Navy SEALs is, the harder it is, the better we like it. And you can imagine, like, these are under the most extreme conditions of life and death, you know, that you can imagine. And his video, I recommend everyone listen, it's good. And this guy was coming to him and saying, "What, you know, I know what you're going to do." This guy would come to him with all the problems. And every time he'd come, he goes, "I know what you're going to say." And he's like, "What are you going to say?" And he's like, "Good." He goes, "Yeah." Because there's some good that's going to come out of everything.
Absolutely.
Didn't get the gear? Good. Didn't get the promotion? Good. Didn't get funded? Good. Mission got canceled? Good. Got beat? Good. You know, like this is his mentality to deal with the most extreme conditions ever, to find the good in those circumstances, which leads me with these athletes who I think a lot of people don't really comprehend. Like, okay, you were good in your high school. Maybe you were good enough to get to a state championship or a national championship, but then to be a professional or Olympic athlete is just a whole other dimension of commitment. Yeah. That's required. You got to have the talent, you got to have the ability, you got to have the work ethic, and the consistency over decades.
And time.
And the difference is 1/10 of a second. 1/10 of a second you get there, 1/10 of a second you're too late.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the razor's edge of all the time on every single thing. And for many of them, their career can end at any single moment. Yeah. And the unusual thing about being an athlete is that you kind of, particularly in the professional domain, you go through your career and you're done by the time most people are just coming into their own. Yeah. Such an interesting field.
I mean, all of it. It's athletes, it's musicians that are incredible at their craft. It's actors or actresses. I mean, the one commonality that I've seen that I love to be in the presence of the people when they're in their zone of genius, when they're just in there. For some people, it's business, right? It's like you get, I mean, you're definitely passionate about what you do, you know, so you definitely get in your yogi too. So there's that. But you get into this zone where you really do feel the presence of the moment, and to witness that in somebody else, you know that you're experiencing divinity.
Yes. Art. Yes. To me, that is the definition of art. So art is when we can witness the cultivation of a skill in any given area, not as a mentation, but as an unfoldment. And that could be, you know, the gymnast in the Olympics jumping off the bar and doing this triple thing and then landing it, or the football leaning over 3 defenders and reaching out with one hand and catching the ball, or a singer hitting the notes on the thing and the hair stands up on the back of your end, right? Or it could be like walking into the yoga meditation center and you see the monk or the swami, or, you know, and they're there, and there's a presence that you witness. And to me, that's what art is. Art is the culmination of skill in outside of the mental realm. It's gone beyond mind.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a beautiful, it's a beautiful thing. And witnessing that, because you kind of illustrated, that's kind of where you kind of got into your craft, where you started to attract those type of people. And I do believe this is the electromagnetic attraction. When you become that what you are seeking, and you automatically happen. And there's a synchronization that happens. And there's a folly within it, because it's kind of like as soon as you're kind of meditating and you get to that no mind place, I'm like, oh, I'm there, and then you're done. You're done. You're done. You're back to your mind. You're back to your mind. Yay me, high five! I'm out. To sit. So, and I think people who have achieved the highest levels of accolades and capabilities also kind of recognize that energy in someone else.
Yeah.
They see it. So they see the world as different, the posers versus the expressionists.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip, rapid cheat meal relief. Research shows that cheat meals can actually be an effective way to boost your metabolism. One key weight loss hormone, leptin, can be increased by up to 30% following a cheat meal. The challenge with the cheat meals is that all those extra calories and lower food quality can be hard to digest, which means you could be totally sidelined with a food coma after big cheat meals. The solution is to take strong digestive enzymes like masszymes, which will help rapidly digest and break down the extra food. 3 to 5 capsules before or right after your cheat meal can make a huge difference in how you feel following the cheat meal. If it's a cheat day with multiple large meals, you might want to go up to 10 capsules or higher to help you power through all that food. To save 10% on masszymes, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and enter the code CHEAT10 at checkout.
I totally agree with that. It's such a fascinating observation to experience with other people too that are on that same frequency. And I 100% believe everything that you're saying. Like attracts like. And when you are in that energetic frequency of presence, abundance, gratitude, you're able to bring those synchronicities into your life. There's no going out to seek it. I mean, I think it's important for us to constantly be doing what it's sort of like putting the work in to get there. I'm not saying
you just sit there by your mailbox.
Yeah, you just sit there and meditate it.
You meditate it in.
It's just
it's kind of like the downside of the way The Secret was.
I talk about this all the time.
Because I always say the law of attraction is the after effect of the law of intention. You got to kind of put out the energetic intentionary ways. And as you keep running that signal over and over, and in physics that would be the collapse of the wave function in the Dirac equation, which in a quantum universe, if you hold an intention in mind, its intensity and magnitude of the wave eventually coalesces into the appearance of that in this temporal realm. Now we see it as a causality of, we look backwards, as science says, and says, oh, we're going to go, well, you were in the situation where you were a kid growing up in a bad neighborhood, you get arrested, and then you changed your life and you went to a meditation thing, and then you got into yoga, and then we went to that. So we can look backwards and say those are the signposts, but those are just flags. They're not really the causes of what put you there. There's a part of you that are driving to the mastery of your craft.
Right.
And in the mastery of the craft, that is that intention, which is yoga, which is an inward thing, not an outward thing. And when the inward thing becomes so depth, in like embodied in not just what you're doing, but who you are.
Yeah.
You become that. And in the becoming of that, whether there's recognition by the world or not is irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Right?
Yeah.
And when it doesn't matter, that's when it tends to happen and becomes beautiful.
Right.
Would you say that's...
I would say 100. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier, that those moments in my life where things have worked out have been those moments where it really didn't matter whether it worked or didn't work. It's just what is happening in that moment. And I think one of the main things, I actually want to go back to what you said about mastery, because I find it to be so important to actually go in, and if you want to be really good at something, you need to invest the time. Just like you're saying, you need to seek the guidance of wise teachers. And in the sutras, it says that you have to have a teacher, that you don't have to, but the whole idea is to follow a guide whose light's a little brighter than yours to show you the way, because somebody else has already been down that path. Somebody else has already knows where all the potholes are.
Yes.
So that you don't step into them.
Or knows how to get out of it when you inevitably do.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, and that's the part of mastery that I feel is a kind of a dying art. The whole idea of having an apprentice and having somebody, assist you for a long period of time. One of the things that I really loved about working in the hair and the beauty industry when I was managing the salon was there's a process of graduation, so to speak. You have to assist. You don't just become a celebrity hairstylist. And in fact, I know a lot of the celebrity hairstylists now. I knew them when they were assisting. And what people don't see, especially on social media, was the years and years and years of hard work that happened before. People don't see the years and years and years of hard work that you do when you launch a successful company or when you're, Fortune 500. They don't see how much money you invested that didn't work, how many products didn't actually launch, all of the things. And the thing that I love about that process is you have to start, everybody starts the same. You start washing hair. And then from washing hair, you're basically helping everybody. Then you may get assigned to a stylist for a couple of years. 2 to 3, 4 max. It's like going to high school. And then after that, you get on the floor and then you have to start from the beginning. You start with your one student, your one client. You start with one and then you begin to build and build. And in that whole process, you could either lament and begrudge that you're not where you want to be, or begrudge the people that you're assisting, or just look to see what's not happening in your life and how much time's going by. Or you can utilize that time to perfect your craft, to learn as much as you can, to learn from your teachers, to use it as a way to have this immersive experience teach you what you need to learn in order to get to that successful place. We don't do that because we want everything quickly. We want to have we want just the good stuff.
Right.
We want what's better. We're wanting what is, oh no, but this looks so much better. If I love my house, but it would be better if I was closer to the beach. Oh, if I was closer, it'd be better if I was on the beach. What would be even better is that if my friends lived closer. Oh, what would be even better is if we could all live in the same little community. There's always going to be that. And if you can recognize that, that's just the nature of your roommate that hangs out there with you. And you're the witness just observing it all. If you can continue to differentiate that. So one of the main things that I love about yoga, and I deduce it down to one thing, and that's learning discernment, cultivating discernment.
What does that mean to you?
In my personal terms, for me, it means know what to do when you're off of the safety of your cushion. This is so that I know what to do when I'm out in the world. Because I know what to do when I'm on my mat. I know what to do when I'm on my cushion. Easy for me. I've been doing it for years now, almost 2 decades.
Right.
Not a problem. It's easy. But taking that and actually going out into the world and being a kind, compassionate, present human, that's a different story.
Yes.
You're now, because there's so many variables thrown in now into that are happening simultaneously. Discernment means to know the difference. To know the difference between what is going to serve your highest good and what isn't. And it's not about always doing what's going to serve your highest good. Sometimes things that you may not think are going to serve your highest good. Like what you were saying about the good, like good. Oh, that happened, good. Oh, this happened, good. It's difficult to navigate a world that's full of impermanence. It's difficult to navigate a world that's consistently changing. I mean, that is the one constant.
Well, yes, the only constant is change. But I think you said something very poignant there that needs focus on, and that is a world of impermanence. So much of the drive in life today, I think, is towards accomplishment, achievement, acquisition of whatever. People, possessions, power, resources.
Titles.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And those are all cool. But they all pass. So they all are impermanent. And if you can recognize, the sooner one recognizes that, that's better. That is discernment. Okay. And the question I have is in how yoga and your practice of yoga, and we can talk maybe about your practice of yoga, how has that helped you in that journey from a troubled teenager in a police car looking at, I could go to jail, versus someone who's teaching yoga to some of the greatest athletes in the world?
That's such a great question. You know, I think about this more often than I probably should, because
Why?
I don't know, sometimes because I'm a morbid thinker and I think about death too often.
Well, we're going to go there in a second.
Yeah,
I think that's a good practice, but we'll come back to that one.
The whole idea of, so the question is dealing with impermanence. I know that I believe that everybody has a purpose. So I believe that each one of us is here to fulfill some call. And for the most part, if we are attuned to that call, we will be compelled to do the things that we need to do in order to get there. I believe that we're like seeds. A seed has an imprint that knows it's going to become a specific flower or a specific tree.
Right.
And
The acorn only becomes an oak, though.
Well, that's true.
It doesn't become a tulip.
Right. Right.
And there's nothing innately better about an oak tree than a tulip.
Right.
And I think that's a mistake some people make. They see something as better than other.
Right.
Like, because an oak tree's bigger, it's better than a tulip.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or an oak tree
100%.
lives 100 years and this lives.
And that's like, there's always going to be that comparisonitis, right?
Yeah.
Comparison is the biggest joy kill. But the whole idea of that imprint that exists, it's in the ground, in the dark, it's going to grow towards the light, and it's going to then become this, and it's crazy because it grows growing into itself. And that's how it sprouts out, right? Let's use the flower example or the tulip example. That imprint is in this little seed. There's no guide or pathway or spreadsheet or goalpost that's going to be like, oh,
where's the seed
yeah.
at?
And how come I'm not as tall as that other tulip over there?
Yeah.
Or I don't understand. This leaf is growing a little bit weird. Should we do something about this? Let's cut it off. You know, it just does. It just grows. And I think about that because then it only lives a short amount of time. It doesn't live forever, right? It's going to wilt and die, and it's going to go back into the soil and then feed the next seed that grows up.
Correct.
So I think that in every experience, this is where I get morbid, right? So it's going to be good to lead into the next question. I believe everything means something, and then I believe that everything means nothing. And my ability to hold those two, it's like I'm not going to, how is it, like, if I get praise, I try not to buy into it, because I also don't want to buy into my criticism.
Right.
So if I can maintain a balance between the two and not buy into the hype and be humble and remember where I came from, then the moment that I'm not doing what I'm doing now and I don't have the attention that I do now, then when I don't have it, because I won't, it's going to be somebody else, there's going to be another yoga teacher, there's going to be another minute. Maybe they're not going to have the same experience or background that I do, but they'll be doing the same thing. I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And there's no amount of money or external success that's going to tell me that I'm not.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the way that I deal with that impermanence.
Yeah, well, I think one of the teachings of favorite parts of Yogananda's things, he says, be so immersed in God that I can stand amidst the crash of breaking worlds and remain unshaken. And I think that's the centerpiece, that the idea of yoga is to stand in the middle of the yin and the yang,
Yes.
in the middle of order and chaos, in the middle of fame and failure, in the middle of financial success and financial disaster, in romantic love and total aloneness. Because even when people look at, what are the big things? Okay, they want their career, they want the right partner in their life,
love,
to be loved, maybe friends, acquisitions and stuff. But if you think of, let's say, love, which is a big one, and you're talking radically loved, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. We'll get to the death piece, because they tie together. When we think of our intimate partner, or even in having a child, or even our relationship, we first learn about this maybe with the relationship of a parent, or usually a grandparent, where that which you love the most will be sure to be taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the aspect of, say, intimate love, I think, which is what a lot of people are really seeking. They're seeking the love of the divine through their partner. The 100% total acceptance of everything, warts and all. Yet, that love is also going to bring the deepest pain, because that person's going to hurt you, or things don't work out, or it could be infidelity, could be sickness, could be financial stuff, could be all sorts of things that could come out of those situations. But sooner or later, chances are one of you is going to die between the other one. So one is going to experience the full force of bitter separation. And oftentimes before the person dies, particularly if they know that they're going to die beforehand, then they are subjected to the fact that they can't be there for their partner to the next phase. And there is great many movies about that, and people who've gone through those transitions experience that firsthand. And there's a beauty within the tragedy, and that it's radical love in that moment. And that's how I see radical love. Real love is to say, I'm going to accept the pain of separation, because the value of the connection supersedes the amount of pain I'm going to experience. I'm willing to take that on.
Yeah. Well, we do it every day. I mean, we accept that. We just don't think about it because we're humans and we have temporary amnesia. Like, we don't think about death because it's not in front of us, right?
Well, I think that's a Western thing, though. I think in the Eastern world, we've kind of we create this antiseptic kind of world where death is put away, and there's boxes and ceremonies, and we don't talk about it. It's not in front of you. Where you go to you go to Varanasi, for example.
Of course.
So I was in Varanasi 2 years ago in August. It'll be 2 years ago in August, and I went all around and did my little thing, and I got a whole trip on that one. But I remember sitting in this little restaurant place. It was not a restaurant, it was like a little place, and it wasn't far from the Shiva temple there. And you're just up this, we went to the crematoriums where they're burning the people, and if they can't afford to burn, they just throw the bodies out into the water, and you see the dead bodies floating down there, and they're burning people so they can spray their ashes in the Ganges, which is a super traditional thing. And Varanasi is built on a city. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. Nobody knows how old this place is, and it's been a spiritual center, and it's very chaotic and very dense and really hard to deal with. And I remember sitting in this little lassi shop, and we're sitting there having our lassis, right? And literally, every couple of minutes is a group of people with a dead body going by. You're sitting there, like, it's like, imagine sitting here at your Starbucks and they're just running dead people by you continuously.
Yeah.
Constant.
Yeah.
Or you go down the streets and there's dead people on the sidewalk. They just died. And they're just lying there in the street. And in these environments, death is very present, it's very real, and it used to be that way in our societies, that you saw grandma when they died, or grandpa, and oftentimes it's painful and tragic and horrific, and yet here in the West we just kind of put that in a box. We don't deal with that very well. And you talk about morbidity, and you get kind of morbid, in that you contemplate death. What has the contemplation of death given to you to allow you to express what it is to be radically loved?
It's everything. It's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think about it more often than I should, but...
Why do you say that?
Well, because I think growing up in an environment like I did, I was constantly being faced with that people were dying, and people were getting killed. It was sort of just in my face. It was always present, and it was something that I always knew was going to happen. My mom was in a very horrific car accident. Like there was just always the thing of my grandmother basically raised my sister and I. She was the one that was our caretaker, and she was older, so it's like, I know she's gonna die. When is she gonna die? You know, that whole thing as a child is very traumatic because nobody wants to talk about it. Right. So I think for me now, and I think it's morbid because I don't necessarily, it's not coming from a fear-based place. It's just coming from it's going to be a next adventure, right? Like nobody knows. Like that's the beauty of death. Nobody knows where we're going, really. Nobody living, maybe we do. We have an idea. And depending on what you believe, but for me, the thought of, if I don't wake up tomorrow, did I live today well?
Yes.
That's the thought. Every night before I go to bed, I think, okay, I'm going to go to sleep right now. I might not wake up tomorrow. Did I do sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like I did not text the person, maybe whatever, it's fine. Like it's fine.
Oh God, maybe I won't wake up tomorrow and I'll have to deal with this.
But that's part of my integrated practice. You asked about my practice earlier, and one thing that I talk about this constantly is that I'm a morning, I love waking up in the morning. I'm an early riser. I wake up at 4:45 every morning for the last 10 years, consistently, every day. I've never missed a day of practice.
Amazing.
And I wake up knowing how good and how incredible it is to be in that magical time and to just take in the divine and see the sunrise. And we have a beautiful place now, like birds are chirping, and it's just incredible. I can wake up in that space after I do my practice. When I open my eyes in the morning, I am not a happy camper. I don't wake up thinking, awesome. No, I open my eyes and I'm just like, who am I? Okay, this body. Right, I'm in this. Okay, wait, what do I do for a living? It's sort of that integrating process of...
Totally get it.
You know what I'm saying?
I totally get
you're
it.
Entering into this world.
I got a great story.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
I had a friend of mine, I've lived with two guys. Both of them's names went by Tony Flo. Very interesting. Both kind of mystical kind of characters.
What?
It came into my life. Both of them had gotten out of a strange relationship and needed a roommate for a while. And this happened literally 10 years apart from each other.
Same name?
Same name, yeah. Very interesting. And the first Tony Flo, we were doing all sorts of crazy experiments we had these feedback devices on her head, and switching between gamma and alpha and delta, cool. And stuff like this, right? This microcurrent technology. And we had little clips on. It was like burning our ears. Sometimes we'd leave it on too long, and we got watching Limitless and doing
oh my God.
It all got crazy. Anyways, we were kind of experimenting with these alternative meditative states, and one day I fell asleep on the couch, which almost never happens with me. I went into this kind of theta state and was out. It was in that state where you're not asleep and you're not awake, right? You're pure theta.
Yeah.
And I understand it. That's what it is now because I've dove quite deep into that realm. And he came in the door. Oh, this was in Vancouver a long time ago. And when he came in the door, my body jumped up, like sat up straight. But I was still in the theta state. And he's very perceptive. And the body had done its thing, but my consciousness wasn't fully immersed in it. And then I felt my identity start to rush in and get synchronized with the body. And he actually witnessed the same thing happen to me. He saw that I wasn't there when I woke, like the body snapped up. Like he could see the separation and I could see the separation. And that was my first big integration between the soul as the soul and the body as the body. And then how identity emerges in that waking thing. Oh, I'm this person, I've got to do. And we often define ourselves by what I have to do in the Western world, not who I am. Or what I am. And then that's, of course, that's the deeper integration of what Dr. Hawkins talks about is what am I? As opposed to, I think it was Ramana Maharishi. He was like, who am I? Who am I? And then Dr. Hawkins says, hey, ask not who am I, what am I? As opposed to a who indicates almost like a body or identification. So pretty interesting. So in your integrated practice, and can you kind of run us, you talked about that morning stuff and then the
Oh, yes.
We still got to, there's a couple pieces here that I'd like people to kind of connect the dots, if you will. And that is your practice on the mat, and you can share if that's a description or how that is. Your contemplation of the impermanence of physicality, the contemplation of death, and then this space in between that we would call your life, your career, your employment, all that stuff. Like, how does that all synchronize together for you?
God, what a great question. I'd love to hear what your response is to this, because I really want to know what your practice is like.
We can get to that later.
You're going to keep trying to, we can go on afterwards. So before I go to bed, that's just something I do right before I close my eyes. I just think, I do a run through of the day. There's this beautiful thing that happens with sleep, and I don't know how much practice or how familiar you are with Yoga Nidra. It's a sleep-based meditative practice. It's also one of these things where or do Yoga Nidra to get to that place. It's basically like a shavasana that's guided, and it is it takes you straight into that theta state. So the whole idea is to remain in a relaxed, present awareness, that in-between state right before you wake up, where the
theta zone.
And you're just hanging out there, where your body, they've been actually doing a lot of research for vets specifically that have PTSD, where Yoga Nidra has been used, and they've seen some really great results with their ability to then reintegrate and relax. And the body, given the opportunity, will heal itself by itself. And in order for a lot of people that have suffered trauma, they've not been in that relaxed state. So if you think about it, in sleep, it's the only time we ever get to disconnect from the mind. Not dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're awake. You're still in that awakened state. And most of the time when we're dreaming, it's only for a few minutes, because most of the time the whole idea is to go into that deep REM sleep, dreamless sleep. That's where you're getting the most rest, where you're in that floaty realm. But that's really the only time that we can disconnect from our hurting, from our suffering, from anything that is plaguing the mind, if you think about it. Because when you wake up, you have to remember, right, oh, my partner left. Oh, right, they're not here anymore. So I've heard so many people talk about losing somebody. I mean, I've lost people in my life, and for me, we are dog parents, and so we have fur babies, and we have gone through some loss with that. But the whole experience of having to remember, oh, I'm awake now. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I have to do today. Oh, right, the person that I love is not here, right? You don't wake up knowing that somebody's gone. You wake up and there is that integrative process that has to happen. So Yoga Nidra is just a practice that I would recommend for everybody. I do about 5 to 6 days a week. I have a recording on YouTube that people can listen to. There's no ads on it. You could just, it's like a 20-minute guided sleep-based. You do it on your back so everybody could do it.
We get some show notes on that.
Where
do you get that?
It's on on Rosie Acosta on YouTube. You just find my channel. It's there.
Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra. Yeah. And I can send you some stuff too, or I'll send.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be some people that are going to go for that.
Oh yeah, and it's so great. I mean, to me, that's where when we talk about my teaching, that's really what I'm passionate about right now. Like, I love teaching Yoga Nidra because it's sort of that deduction of doing all the asana, and then you're doing the pranayama, you're doing the breath work, and now you're teaching meditation, and now life skills, you're learning philosophy, and then Yoga Nidra should also be a part of that process. Especially right now, I'll kind of segue back into what I'm saying, but because we are overstimulated and we're constantly tense and we're going to sleep getting prana depleted. So prana is, in yoga, it's vitality. It's like the force. It's our energy source, resource.
Yeah, life force energy.
Yeah, and so our prana is constantly being depleted. It gets depleted by negative thoughts. It's getting depleted by electronics. It's getting depleted by relationships. It's getting depleted by your duties. And in order for us to fill our prana, we need to be doing things that give us life. Going out, being outdoors, having conversations with our loved ones, prayer, meditation, yoga nidra, taking time away from your devices, except this podcast, and doing the things that are going to fill you up. So for me, so much of my practice is dependent on where my prana is. When I'm depleted, it's so easy because I'm crabby, I'm irritable, I am really engaged in my roommate that lives in it's like my mind, right? The monkey mind.
Yeah,
my mind's my roommate.
Yeah, right.
So I'm engaged in everything that's happening there. So when I wake up in the morning and I'm reintegrating back into this person, this person that I am, this career, right, this identity that has been created.
Between those two states.
Yeah, between that sort of samadhi-like state to this person that I am, then I get up and I go into my little Zen den and I move my body, because movement is such a huge thing for me. Movement has been the way that I've been able to move through trauma. It's been the way that I've moved through grief, because so much gets stuck in our body, right? Our issues are in our tissues, and it's sort of the storehouse of energy. High charge points in our body, our shoulders, our hips. People oftentimes, when they're doing hip openers, say, oh, you store a lot of anger in your hips, or there's just like certain parts of the body that really store a lot of memory, a lot of energy. And so I have to move my body right away, because it gets me out of that, oh, I have to do this, and now I have this, and oh, I have to get back to this person, or I'm doing this, or I've got to pay my bills, or whatever it is, I have to do humanly things. So it just gets me back into my body. And then the minute that I move my body around, which is how in the sutras it says, you do your asana before your pranayama so that your body is now in a more relaxed state. I do some breath work. I might read a contemplation in a book, and then I sit and then I do my meditation practice for 45 minutes to an hour. And many things happen during that. I try to meditate. I always say I attempt it, because the roommate's just constantly there.
Right.
She's a listographer. She loves to make lists. She loves to make plans. She loves to acquire things for her future. inner mind, it would be really great if I could do this meditation in Hawaii somewhere.
Right.
And so once I emerge from that practice that typically is about almost 2 hours, I can do anything. I come out of my Zen den and I'm ready to take on the day. I'm less bothered by things. I can deal with getting on the computer for a while. I may write for a couple hours. I may answer some emails. I may record. Whatever I do at that point just is so much more seamless because I feel, okay, today could be the last day.
Right.
Today, something terrible could happen. I could get in my car and have a car accident. I mean, on my way here, there was a pretty tragic accident that I saw on the freeway. And my thinking is always, that person or their family or the people. It's like you feel bad for the people that get left behind, right? Because that person is now on to the next adventure. And we're still here living in this scenario. And so, that's just always been part of my process. That's why, just going back to your question on impermanence, I feel like for me, thinking about how everything is impermanent allows me to navigate those difficult moments too, when you're grieving or when you're going through something really difficult or you get some bad news. I know that it's not going to last forever. And it's an interesting conversation, actually, one that I would like to ask you, navigating those moments when people are feeling hopeless or they feel helpless in some way, navigating that intensity when especially grief, right? Because grief feels like it's never going to end. It feels like it's just going to last forever. And it's one of those things that we were talking about with time. It gets better over time. It does get better over time. It's going to hurt a little bit less the next day. And like you go through a really tough breakup, the next day it's still going to hurt. I'm not saying that thinking about it is not going to cause pain, but time does quell the intensity of that feeling. So for me, having all of these practices, doing all of these things, having this awareness has just really helped navigate through things that we have no control over. You have control over how you react, and you have control over how your body reacts. You have control over your breath, and you have control over making choices that are either going to help and serve your highest good or not. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Love it. So, where do you think your practice and you, like that expression of you in the world, who does it serve, and how does it serve you, and you serve the greater aspect of self, which is all of humanity on some level? Like, how do you navigate that relationship in your life with yourself and your interactions with the world and the people's lives who you touch?
God, such a great question. You know, I a few years ago, I stopped seeing my practice as something that served me personally. Before, I would say, you know, Tori, my life partner, he always says this thing where he doesn't talk to me until my practice is done, right? So we have this rule that it's like, just don't talk to it. Like, let it go and do its thing. Beautiful. And then
it's beautiful.
You know, so and he has respected that for many years, and it's great because there's that understanding of she needs to do this before she enters in. And I used to think, my service to the greater good is me showing up as this grounded person, not this like frenetic, how does any of this matter? Like, why am I here? Like, what is this all about? You know, energy, this manic person. But I just, there's been a transition that's happened over the last couple of years where I don't really see my practice as serving me. It's just a part of something that needs to happen. You know, it's not necessarily about me and how it's serving me. And now my cup is full. Now I can go serve others. In a way, I guess it works that way, but it's almost like doing my practice is my gratitude prayer to the universe to say, hey, because if I think about it, it's serving me. It's 2 hours out of my day that I could be doing something else, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I could be done with, I could be sleeping, exactly. I'm telling you.
4:45's early.
And here's the thing about that. I have to, even now, as long as I've been doing it and not miss a day, there are, I would say 80% of the time where I have to convince myself, like, just do half of it. Just do a third every day. This morning I woke up and I'm like, okay, just do 20 minutes.
Right.
But then once you're there, it just...
Interesting, Jocko Willink says the same thing.
What?
And he's the Navy SEAL, which is coming at it from a completely different house, but says the same. He gets up, he's famous for his Instagram. He goes at 4:30 a.m.
Oh, right, 4:30 a.m. club.
Right. Yeah, he's a 4:30. He's the guy that kind of did that.
Yeah.
That's how he started his Instagram, just taking a picture of his watch every morning. And he talks about that, right?
Wow.
Like, get after it.
Yeah, and it just happens, you know. It just kind of creates this thing. But I just in that moment,
because I think a lot of people struggle with that piece right there. How, like, the moment where the rationalization can come in, just hit the snooze button, 10 more minutes, whatever. Like, how do you nip the rationalizer? Like, how do you knock that out? You know, like, it's there.
yeah,
right? Like, how do you do that?
Do it. You just roll yourself out of bed. You just make it happen. During my McDonald's diet phase, I was almost 200 pounds. And it took a long time for me to get healthy and to, you know, I wasn't a gym person. I hated running. Like, it was one of those experiences where I always go back. That's sort of where that training happened, that you have to just do something every day. You have
to
just
eat the broccoli, not the happy meal.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this broccoli and this grilled chicken. Like, how much broccoli and grilled chicken can I eat? I mean, I didn't just stick to that. There was other things I ate. But it's hilarious, you know, to think about it in that way, because it does take a certain level of audacity to just do something. And to me, it's the short-term feel good of sleeping in is not, it's going to make, for me, it just makes me feel worse to say, okay, I'm going to just sleep in some more as opposed to just getting up. I compare it to drinking. Like, I don't drink. And the only reason why is because I think about it like this. I always regret drinking. Always. I never regret not drinking. So for me, it's like, I've never regretted doing my practice, ever. If ever I've delayed it or slept in, I always regret that. I always feel like, oh, I should have woken up, or maybe I slept until 5:30. Like, I should have just, because now I'm not going to complete my whole cycle, and it creates this thing. And I know that there's a fluidity that needs to exist because of attachment and all of those things. But I find it a small thing to do to embed that greatness aspect of honoring yourself and having that self-respect and that belief in yourself that you can do something. I mean, for me, getting up at 4:45 and like moving my body in a way that feels good and then sitting down and meditating is so much easier than having like some of my clients or students that wake up and are hitting their body hard and they're like at the gym or like bodybuilding, you know, like pumping iron and doing. To me, that's way more heroic than moving my body a little bit and then sitting down and meditating. For me, that's like, I'd rather be doing this. You know, I love to run now. Like, one of the incentives for me to get healthy is I signed up for the LA Marathon, and I've run 4 marathons.
Wow.
And so I wouldn't still, after all these years, I still wouldn't consider myself a runner, but I do fancy a run. I love running. It makes me so happy and it gets me into the zone. So there is that aspect of movement. I really feel for the people that have a hard time with just making that decision and just doing it, because it's hard. And I do like to acknowledge that it could be really difficult for some people to just do it, because there's so many excuses, right?
Such a great statement that Nate came out with, just do it.
I mean,
it's one of the greatest.
One of the best.
For sure, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just like they say.
So, as an advocate for yoga and the practice, and as a teacher, what do you hope to instill in your students?
My intention has always been to empower my students, that they have everything they need already. One of the things that I love to say at the end of class is, everything you need is right here, right now, in this present moment. And understanding that as a concept for living is one of the greatest gifts that I received, and I feel one of the greatest gifts I can hope to instill in my students, is to just know that this breath is perfect, this body is perfect, your life is exactly where it needs to be in this moment, as chaotic and as messed up as you might think it is. You're here now, and you can make a different choice. And yoga and meditation offers the foundation and a guide to show you, to demonstrate to you that you can go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. It's like how we do everything on the mat is how we do everything in life. So if you're able to show up on your mat fully and be fully who you are, and be fully accepted by this little rectangle in this space, then why wouldn't the acceptance be the same off the mat? Why wouldn't the ease, ability of going from one pose to the next be as easy as, waking up and going for that run, or calling that person, or applying for that job, Does that make sense? I don't know.
100%. Maybe. Where can people find out more about instilling this practice in their own lives if they're so interested?
They can go to my website. They can go to radicallylove.com. They can follow me on Instagram, Rosie Acosta, and all of the offerings are there. Anything that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap this side of the interview up? I feel that right now, more than ever, it's so important for everybody to feel seen and to feel connected and to feel supported. And that's always been my biggest intention with creating Radically Loved. And if I could just say one thing to everybody, if the one thing that they leave with this conversation is just one statement, is that they are radically loved and radically supported. And that they're here, they're present in this moment. And if this is all that we have and this is all that exists right now, then this moment is perfect. And take that.
Beautifully said. Well, there you have it. That's another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And of course, this has been an awesome one. I'm sure you're going to be back again, because I think we only opened up a door into the infinite, and there'll be plenty of time to dive a little deeper into that conversation. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Wade.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.